Imagine you wake up tomorrow morning and suddenly your knees hurt every time you stand. Your eyesight is weaker. Your hands shake when you try to pick something up. You cannot run fast anymore. You cannot carry heavy things. You cannot hunt, climb, or walk for hours the way you once did. Now imagine this is not happening in a modern city. There is no hospital, no pension, no pharmacy, no soft bed waiting for you. You are living thousands of years ago in a world of cold nights, sharp stones, wild animals, hunger, injuries, and constant movement. So what happens next? Do people leave you behind? Do they protect you? Do you become useless? Or does old age mean something completely different in the ancient world? Today, when we think about ancient humans, we often imagine young hunters, strong bodies, and dangerous survival. But there is a quieter question hidden behind that image. What happened to the people who survived long enough to become old? Because some did. Not everyone died at 30. That is a common misunderstanding. Infant deaths were very high, so average life expectancy looks low. But if a person survived childhood, they could sometimes live into their 60s, 70s, or even beyond. The real question is not whether old people existed. They did. The real question is why ancient groups kept them close, and what role they played when their bodies could no longer do what younger bodies could. The evidence suggests that getting old in deep human history was not simple. It was not comfortable, but it was also not meaningless. Archaeologists have found ancient skeletons with healed injuries, worn teeth, arthritis, and signs of long-term survival after serious physical damage. That matters. A healed injury tells us something powerful. It means the person lived long enough after the injury for the body to repair itself. And sometimes that would have required help. Food, protection, patience, care. In a harsh world, survival was rarely a solo achievement. Picture a small group moving across a cold landscape, children walking close to adults, hunters watching the horizon, someone carrying tools, someone else carrying firewood, and behind them, maybe an older woman walking slower than the rest. Her joints hurt. Her teeth are worn down from years of chewing tough food or using her mouth like a tool. But she knows where the water usually collects after rain. She knows which plants are safe. She remembers the season when animals pass through a valley. She has seen bad winters before. She has buried children. She has watched births. She has watched people die from mistakes the young have not yet learned to fear. In that world, memory was not entertainment. Memory was survival. One of the biggest challenges for old people was the body itself. Ancient life was physically demanding. Bones from prehistoric populations often show heavy wear. Many people had arthritis. Teeth could become damaged or lost. Infections were dangerous. A broken bone could change the rest of a person's life. And without modern pain relief, even ordinary aging could be brutal. Walking long distances with damaged hips or knees would have been exhausting. Eating without strong teeth could be difficult. Cold weather would hurt more. Injuries healed badly. Small problems could become serious. But here is the surprising part. Old age may have become more common at certain points in human evolution, and that may have changed everything. Some researchers have argued that later humans had more older adults than earlier human groups. Researchers aren't completely sure exactly how big this change was because the fossil record is incomplete, but the idea is important. When more people lived long enough to become grandparents, human groups gained something other animals rarely had in the same way: living libraries. This is where the grandmother hypothesis comes in. In evolutionary biology, some researchers suggest that older women helped human families survive by supporting grandchildren after they could no longer have children themselves. Among some hunter-gatherer groups studied by anthropologists, grandmothers helped gather food, care for children, and reduce the burden on mothers. This does not mean every ancient grandmother lived the same life. It does not prove one single story for all humans. But it suggests something fascinating. Old age may not have been a weakness only. It may have been part of how human families became so successful. And older men mattered too. They may not always have been the strongest hunters anymore, but strength was never the only useful thing. Older men could make tools, repair weapons, teach tracking, watch children, tell younger hunters where animals moved, and warn against dangerous choices. In many traditional societies, elders are valued not because they can outrun everyone, but because they know what has happened before. They understand patterns. They remember droughts, migrations, conflicts, animal behavior, and social rules. Now think about this. In a world without writing, the oldest person in the group might be the only one who remembered a disaster from 40 years earlier. A flood. A famine. A dangerous neighboring group. A plant that saved people during hunger. A place where water still existed when everything else dried up. Today, we store information in phones and books. Ancient humans stored it in people. Losing an elder could mean losing a map that was never drawn. There are also archaeological finds that hint at care for people who could not fully care for themselves. One famous Neanderthal skeleton from Shanidar Cave in Iraq has been interpreted by some researchers as showing serious injuries and survival for years afterward. The details are debated, and researchers aren't completely sure how much care was involved. But the broader pattern matters. Across different ancient remains, we see people living with injuries, disease, and physical limits. That does not happen easily without some level of social support. This changes the old stereotype. Ancient humans were not just brutal survivors abandoning anyone who slowed them down. They were social animals. And humans survive through cooperation. A group that shares food, protects children, helps injured members, and learns from elders may survive better than a group that treats everyone as disposable. Care was not modern weakness. It may have been one of the oldest human strengths. But old age was probably not peaceful in the way we imagine retirement today. There was no free time as a life stage. Older people still worked if they could. They gathered plants, prepared food, made clothing, watched children, maintained fire, processed hides, shaped tools, told stories, passed on skills. In many ancient groups, useful work did not always mean heavy work. A person who could not chase an animal could still prepare sinew, teach a child how to identify tracks, or remember which berries cause sickness. And there is another detail most people miss. In small groups, relationships were everything. An older person was not just an elderly member. They were someone's mother, father, uncle, aunt, grandmother, grandfather, teacher, healer, witness, or storyteller. Their value was personal. They had history with everyone. They had helped raise people who were now adults. They had settled arguments. They had carried babies. They had shared hunger. So caring for them was not only practical, it was emotional. Did every old person receive care? Probably not. The evidence suggests ancient life varied widely. Some groups may have cared deeply for elders. Others, under extreme pressure, may have struggled. During famine, migration, conflict, or environmental collapse, weaker members would have been at greater risk. We should not romanticize the past. Ancient life could be harsh, and old people would have felt that harshness sharply. But we should also not reduce ancient humans to cruelty. The archaeological and anthropological evidence points to a more complicated truth. People needed each other. As humans moved into farming societies, old age changed again. Farming created settled villages, stored food, property, inheritance, and larger families. Elders may have gained new roles as landholders, ritual leaders, family heads, or keepers of tradition. But farming also brought new diseases, harder repetitive labor, social inequality, and conflict over resources. So, life did not simply become easier. In some ways, it became more organized. In other ways, it became more stressful. In ancient civilizations, elders could hold authority. In many cultures, age was linked with wisdom, memory, and status. But status depended on gender, wealth, family, health, and social position. A wealthy elder and a poor elder did not experience old age the same way. Just like today, aging was shaped by power. Some were respected, some were vulnerable, some had family protection, others may have been forgotten. When we compare ancient humans to us, the difference feels huge at first. We have medicine, glasses, surgery, soft food, heating, transport, and digital memory. We can survive diseases that would once kill quickly. We can replace joints, treat infections, and manage pain. In that sense, getting old is easier now. But something also became harder. Many modern people age away from the center of daily life. Their knowledge is less necessary for survival because information lives outside them. We do not need a grandparent to remember where the water is. We check a map. We do not need an elder to remember a famine. We read data. We do not need someone to teach every skill by hand. We watch a video. Modern life protects the old body better, but it does not always protect the old person's place in the group. Ancient elders may have lived with more pain, more danger, and fewer comforts, but many also lived in a world where memory had weight, where experience could feed children, where a story could be a warning, where knowing the past could change who survived the next winter. And maybe that is the strangest part. Old age was not an accident at the edge of human life. It may have helped shape what humans became. Long childhoods, shared care, teaching, memory, culture, and family networks all depend on people living long enough to pass things on. A young species can survive, but a species with elders can remember. The next time you see an older person moving slowly across a street, it is strange to think how ancient that image really is. A body carrying time, a mind full of places that no longer exist, a person who has survived seasons others never saw. Maybe ancient humans did not ask what old people were for in the way modern society sometimes does. Maybe the answer was obvious. They were the ones who remembered. And for most of human history, remembering was one of the most important things a person could do.